Hey there, welcome. My name is Brian Lockshaw. I'm a veteran of 9 years as a nuclear chemist in the U.S. Navy on submarines, and today we're going to be diving into the tax system and seeing if there's a better way to reduce the wealth and income inequality in America through a wealth tax. Let's start by looking at the current problem. In 1989, the top 10% of the wealthiest Americans owned 67% of the wealth. But just 27 years later, in 2016, it increased to 77% of the wealth, while the bottom 50% went from 3% down to 1%. The same thing is happening with income distribution in America. The top 10% of the highest earners are getting a larger portion of the pie, increasing to 50% in 2016, whereas the bottom 50% of earners are getting less and less. So why is this happening? The short answer is that money makes more money. A millionaire investing properly throughout his lifetime should never have to work a day in his life, and his wealth can still increase throughout his lifetime, and he'll pass it on to his children, and the cycle will continue over and over. If we were to continue down our current path without making any changes, then America would end up as an oligarchy, where a small portion of people would have collected all the wealth and they would make all of the decisions for the rest of the population. America runs mainly off of income taxes, which is a tiered system where the higher your income is, the more percentage you have to pay as taxes. And these percentages have changed throughout history. Like in 1981, the highest earners had to pay 70%, whereas today it's only 37%. But a lot of the wealthiest individuals are making most of their money through investments, and capital gains taxes are drastically lower than income taxes. If you've owned a stock for over a year, the most that you're going to pay is 20%, and some people can pay 0%. Senator Elizabeth Warren proposed a 2% annual tax on household net worth greater than $50 million and a 4% annual billionaire surtax on household net worths above $1 billion. She expects her plan to net $3.75 trillion over 10 years. Senator Bernie Sanders also has a wealth tax proposal that starts at 1% for individuals with a net wealth of $32 million and gradually increases to 8% for those who have greater than $10 billion. His plan is estimated to generate $4.35 trillion over the next 10 years. Some of the problems with these plans include the administration and enforceability. We would need teams of people constantly appraising asset value for every item a person owns, including jewelry and artwork, in order to determine a person's net worth. Another problem with this plan is business assets. If we use Elon Musk as an example, most of his net worth is in Tesla stock, and he would be forced to constantly liquidate his ownership in his company in order to pay his wealth tax and could lead to ownership changes. I think business assets should be excluded from the wealth tax in order to prevent disrupting business operations. Several countries have imposed a wealth tax throughout history, with the largest being 14 different countries in 1995. But since then, many have repealed the wealth tax to where today there's only 6 countries with a wealth tax. But their percentages are drastically lower than those proposed by Senators Warren or Sanders. A study by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development argues that a wealth tax can harm risk-taking and entrepreneurship, harming innovation and impacting long-term growth. The report also suggests that a net wealth tax could spur investment and risk-taking. A wealth tax would definitely lower inequality and provide a large supply of tax revenue to pay for programs such as universal health care, but may have negative side effects such as businesses and individuals relocating in order to avoid the tax. An 8% annual wealth tax would quickly erode anyone's fortune, so I doubt very many billionaires would stick around. I originally thought a wealth tax would be a good solution to fix inequality in America, but after some research, I think that the plans proposed by Senators Warren and Sanders are a little too extreme, but that anything less than their proposed percentages might not be worth the difficulty of enforcement and administration. A simple increase to capital gains tax percentages and highest tier income tax would facilitate a similar outcome with less of an administrative burden attached. Another possible solution is a value-added tax. Every advanced country in the world has a VAT except the US. If you impose a 10% VAT and exempt small businesses, you could pay for universal basic income and still have $2.9 trillion in tax revenue over a 10-year period. If we were to choose a universal basic income near the federal poverty level, to where a family of 4 would receive about $5,200 a year, you would drastically improve the lives of millions, while middle-class Americans would pay the exact same in taxes, and the top 1% would have their tax rate increased by 5.5%. It may seem counterintuitive, but the VAT functions as a 10% tax on existing wealth because future consumption can only be financed with existing wealth or future wages. Unlike a tax imposed on accumulated assets, the VAT's implicit wealth tax is very difficult to avoid or evade and does not require the valuation of assets. One of VAT's biggest flaws is that, unless mandated otherwise, the amount of VAT paid by taxpayers is hidden. VAT amounts aren't normally printed on receipts, unlike sales tax. It's also difficult to impose a VAT on services, which is a large portion of America's GDP. In summary, in order to reduce inequality, there's going to need to be a tax increase on the rich, one way or another, in order to prevent the advancement of the class divide and the evaporation of the middle class.